Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's virtual program with Turnstile Tours. I am Andrew Gustafson, and I'm going to be your facilitator today. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to be joined by our team members, Brian and Amanda, and we're going to explore the world of falafel. But what I want to do now is welcome our main attraction, which is Brian, because Brian is not only going to tell us about the history and the story of falafel, he is also going to do a cooking demonstration and share with us his own secrets for cooking falafel, although it's a recipe that he borrowed from someone that we're going to talk about on the program today. So Brian, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew. Yes, so I will have to preface by saying I am a newbie when it comes to falafel making. I've eaten a lot of falafel. I can certainly tell you my favorite places around the city to get it, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But yes, I have been practicing and going to show you what I've learned, and hopefully you get to try some falafel making yourself.
Nice.
We're also at some point going to be going live to a food cart in Midtown that we really love the falafel there. So we'll talk.
And maybe we can check in with Amanda if you're with us.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Yes, I am down here at Quick Meal. You can see their name up there. So I'm the lucky one today because I get to actually be eating the falafel out on the street. So I'll be checking in with you guys in a little bit with an interview from Nasir, who runs Quick Meal, and hopefully a little bit of fresh falafel.
So my son, I was prepping for this morning and getting all the ingredients ready. And my son said, how are the people going to get the falafel? And I had to, he's 5 years old. I had to explain that hopefully they'll make it themselves. Unfortunately, we have not figured that technology out yet.
So if you can't go to any of the places Brian is going to highlight today, well, at least come away with a recipe so you can make it yourself. But Brian, so we're going to kick off the program today. You're going to tell us a little bit about what falafel is. Then we're going to do a cooking demo, at least the first part. Then we're going to talk more about falafel's history and some of the best places to get it. Then we're hopefully going to have enough time where you can actually have a finished product that you can try, and we'll do a little taste test between you and Amanda.
That's right. Yeah, so it's exciting. So falafel is something that I wasn't terribly familiar with prior to moving to New York. And I think in some pockets of the US, you don't find falafel as often as you do here. So in many ways, we're lucky, and we're certainly lucky to be surrounded by all this. But I've met lots of people on the food cart tours I've led from other places that have no idea what it is. So let's start with the basics. It's pretty incredible. It is made from beans, usually these chickpeas or garbanzo beans, but often you'll also find them with fava beans or a mixture of the two. So you start with these. They're ground up into a mixture. You add in different herbs and spices depending upon the recipe. Then they're formed into balls or patties or other shapes sometimes and cooked until crispy, usually deep fried, but they also can be baked or pan fried as well in vegetable oil. And the spices, as I mentioned, they really vary. Usually you'll find cumin, coriander, red pepper, but even sesame seeds sometimes find their way into falafel. And then definitely herbs. I think great falafel is made with parsley, cilantro, mint, dill, maybe a combination of all that. Really, the options are limitless there. And I think falafel is really remarkable because, especially in this day and age, they check off a lot of the boxes when it comes to food restrictions. These are vegetarian. In fact, they're completely vegan. They're gluten-free. They're dairy-free. They're nut-free. Here they are. And they have fresh greens and protein inside. So even though they are fried, they're actually quite healthy. And they're usually pretty affordable. In some places in New York, you can get a side of 4 or 5 falafels for, it used to be $1. It's probably more like $2 now. Some places it's a little more expensive than that, but certainly less than $10. You get a delicious, filling vegetarian lunch or dinner. I think we've got another photo here after this one as well. That shows what one of those sandwiches would be. Now, sometimes falafel served in a sandwich, in a pita. Sometimes it's served as a big mix of appetizers. Sometimes it's on a salad. There's lots of options, but I kind of think this is the classic falafel pita. This is from a place in Brooklyn called Chickpea that is actually quite good. So I want to get the cooking demo going, because one of the parts of this, of making really good crispy falafel, is after you make the mixture, you actually want it to chill or rest in the refrigerator. And that allows all of the flavors to mix and the starches to kind of mix all together so that it makes a very crisp falafel. I want to show, Andrew, if you can come back to me, I found my recipe from this great book that was printed quite a while ago. I know things are backwards, but this is called New York a la carte. This is a book that was written by our friends Alexandra Penfold and Siobhan Wallace, also known as Blondie and Brownie. And they documented lots of food carts and trucks and their recipes here in New York. So I have borrowed the recipe of possibly the most famous falafel vendor in New York City, a gentleman named Freddie, the king of falafel, who started out in Astoria with his food cart and has since expanded to have carts and trucks and a brick and mortar location. He's a Vendy Award winning vendor. And so I borrowed the recipe. His recipe is pretty secret, and we got a little video I'm going to show you. He'll even tell you it's secret. He's given the recipe to this book, but from my research, it's not all of it, because he also used to have a recipe on his website that was different from this. So I've used some of this, and then I've sort of picked from other recipes I found as well to create a falafel today. So I'm going to move to my dining room, where I'm going to show you how to make the mixture. But in the meantime, I'd like to introduce you to Freddie. This is a video that Munchies produced that shows Freddie making the falafel and talking a little bit about his time growing up in Palestine. So one of the very important keys in making falafel is you don't want to use the chickpeas that have been in a can. Those are pre-cooked and they're very, very wet. You want to start with the dry chickpea, very important. So you have to soak this overnight in water, which I did. I also added a little bit of baking powder into that water, which I heard from some videos I watched that helps with the starches, I guess. And so it makes sure that the falafel stays crispy. One of the problems that I've had when I eat out and get falafel, sometimes people businesses will pre-make them, they'll pre-fry them, and then they'll kind of sit out all day until you order them, and then they'll warm them up. And that's part of what makes it very sort of dense and dry and soggy in some cases. I don't think that's a great falafel. Ones that are fried to order or baked to order are the way to go. So that's what we're going to do today. So I've soaked the chickpea. So then I've washed them and I put them in a salad spinner to dry them a little bit. I'm putting them into a food processor. This is definitely an important tool to have when you are making falafel. And then we throw in lots of herbs and spices. Today I'm using parsley and cilantro. Like I said, mint, dill, sometimes just parsley, sometimes just cilantro. It's really up to the chef. But I think the more herbs that you've got, the better. It's about a cup together, it's a cup of parsley and a cup of cilantro. So those are going in as well. And I use some of the stems too. A lot of people, I think, throw away the stems, but the stems have a lot of flavor, and especially when you're grinding them up like this, it will all go together. And then we've got
Brian, a question.
Yeah.
What if people don't like cilantro? Some people just cannot eat it.
Yeah.
So
easy enough to leave out. I mean, if you're making your own falafel at home, it's really up to you and what you like. I do like cilantro, so maybe I'm not the best person to ask. I don't find that the cilantro flavor is very strong in this because there's so many other things going on. But by all means, if that's not your favorite flavor, which I know a lot of people don't like it, easy enough to skip. Add more parsley. So I would probably do 2 cups total of herbs, parsley, mint, dill, cilantro, any mix of that together. And then the spices that I'm using, and again, there's lots of different spices. And in fact, Freddie has paprika, but I used paprika when I practiced, and it made it very, very red. So I'm leaving the paprika out of this particular one. So here we go. So I'm using cumin, which I think is very important in falafel. And some people say, obviously the best way to do this, if you have the seeds and you use a mortar and pestle or a like spice grinder to grind them up, that's going to be the freshest. That's a lot of work, and I didn't do it. I happen to have these pre-ground spices, and that's okay. Cumin, coriander. This is cayenne. I like a little bit of heat, but of course, if you don't like heat, easy enough to leave out. A little bit of cinnamon and cardamom, which is a similar flavor, a little more floral than cinnamon. But so we'll put those together.
And Brian, I
Yes.
know you have a couple favorite places in Manhattan to get spices, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. Kalustyan's is #1 in my book. It's on Lexington Avenue and like 27th Street, somewhere in that vicinity. It's in the area known as Curry Hill. They've got everything. And they've got different versions. There's green cardamom, black cardamom, brown cardamom, etc. So you can go crazy there and make your own falafel from whatever you find there. There's also a great place in East Village, I think, Andrew, that you're familiar with as well, Dual Spice or Dual Food on First Avenue and like near 7th Street. Smaller location, but they've got a lot of great variety, and they'll certainly have these spices and a lot more as well. Salt, and also next to the salt is a little bit of baking soda. So we don't put any flour or binder in this. Some recipes will call for chickpea flour, but baking soda is what Freddie uses. And it seems like most of the traditional recipes don't call for anything to bind it, but baking soda will help a little bit keep it together. So that's going in. And then onions are important. You definitely want onions. You don't have to chop them very finely, because again, it's all getting blended together. And oh yeah, and garlic, which I just am gonna crush real quick here. And then we will blend this up. Probably should have, oh, it's okay. Probably should have sliced those up. I forgot to prep the garlic. I don't like to prep garlic too early. So we'll get these in here. 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, up to you, but garlic is definitely a very important addition to falafel. And then we will close this up, and we want to pulse this to, it should be sort of the texture, sort of a sandy, sort of like small couscous texture. I think I plugged it in, or I hope I plugged it in. All right, give me a second. Of course, if this doesn't work, that's gonna, why is it not working? I'll be right back.
Take your time, Brian. While Brian is fixing his food processor, yeah, let us know if you have any questions or suggestions for if you make falafel at home, or if you want to experiment. There we go.
Sorry, got it going. All right, so we want to pulse this. This is a Cuisinart. I got this recently. In fact, it's kind of a funny story that probably no one really cares that much about, but I bought myself a food processor, and at the same time, my parents gifted me a food processor, and I ended up with 2 food processors at the same time, and I had to figure out which one to keep. One was called Ninja, and my son begged up me to keep the Ninja, but he lost. The Cuisinart is the more powerful one, so we cut that one. All right, so let's see how this is, what the texture is like. So yeah, so that's probably a good texture there. And it should slightly hold together. You know, something that maybe I might add that Freddie had in his recipe is to add just a little bit of water. I think that holds pretty good. I am gonna add just a little bit of water, because one of the concerns is that when you fry this, they sort of disintegrate, which would not be good. So let me grab some water real quick.
And so now folks can get a closer view of what the mixture should look like while Brian grabs some water. If you want to see more of Brian's cooking demonstrations, you can do that. Some of you may be aware Brian has been cooking food from every country in the world with his son Sam. Is falafel going to be on your list?
Well,
some country. We'll talk about, it could be any number of countries.
It could be any number of countries, and there is a bit of controversy over who claims falafel. So I'm not sure that I'm going to play into that and pick falafel as representative of any specific country. I don't want to cause any trouble. So I don't know. We haven't gotten close enough to alphabetically to a country that claims falafel. I think the first one alphabetically would be Egypt, and we'll talk about that. So I don't know. We have yet to make falafel together. I've yet to have my son try it, not because I haven't tried, but because he's 5 and he is not quite open to it yet. Maybe today. Maybe he'll try this when he comes back in. Okay, just gonna pulse this for another second or two. Okay, and then I'm gonna scrape down the sides here. In fact, I should probably scrape down the sides and pulse. It's funny, I do that cooking video that Andrew mentioned, but it is not usually live. But maybe this should be an impetus to start doing some sort of live cooking videos. Why not? All right.
You cooked something live for us last year. I'm trying to remember what we made.
We did. It was about a year ago. What was it? I can't remember what it was now. It was also with Amanda's son, Jack. I think it was some sort of pastry that we made.
Oh, maybe Amanda remembers.
Oh, she probably does. I know that getting Jack to try it was also a challenge.
It was the Bohemian bread.
That's right, Johnny cake.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. I can't quite remember how it turned out. And for me, it's always if Sam, my son, eats it or not is successful. But okay, so we've got a good mixture here. Now, this part's important, which is why we're doing it at the beginning. This really should rest for between 15 minutes up to an hour. We don't have an hour today, but I'm gonna put this in the refrigerator and we're gonna talk a little more about falafel history and how it came to New York City to become such a ubiquitous street food, and not just street food, fast food in many cases around New York. And while I'm doing that and moving back, I've got a little song I want to share with you. This is a song by a songwriter, an Israeli songwriter, Dan Almogar, who wrote this song in the late 1950s about falafel. We're just playing a little snippet of it. And Israel is one of those countries that has laid claim on falafel as their national dish. And this song certainly showcases that. There's no question. They're saying falafel is Israeli. So kind of a cool little pop song to play. So let's talk a little bit about the history of falafel. And if you came here to find a true, this is how falafel began, sorry to say, it's not that simple. There's a lot of complicated history to it and controversial history as well. It's definitely a food that is from the Levant area along the western part of the Mediterranean, in like Western Asia. So most of these countries here all cook a version of falafel. Both Israel and Palestine definitely claim the dish as their own, and that is a very controversial thing, as you can imagine, and it probably runs a lot deeper than just a pita stuffing. So you definitely will find falafel in both Israel and Palestine today. But most likely, the very first place that falafel began was in Egypt, probably from the port city of Alexandria. But when and by whom, that's sort of up for debate, I guess. Some people say it traces its origin way back to ancient Egypt. It is true that fava beans had been discovered in the tombs of the pharaohs, but outside of royalty in ancient Egypt, people probably weren't eating things that were fried in oil, because oil was a very prized ingredient, and deep frying something is ultimately use a lot of oil, and it's wasteful. So that probably wasn't an early ancient Egyptian dish. Maybe the pharaohs were eating it, but outside of that, certainly not. Some say that it was the Coptic Christians in Egypt during the Roman era that created a fava bean fritter as a meat-free option during Lent, which is very possible. But falafel didn't appear in literature until after the British occupation in Egypt in 1882. And another story has to do with British soldiers who fell in love with a fried vegetable fritter in India, something like this next photo, a pakora. And so those British soldiers asked the Egyptian cooks to create their own version. So that's a much more modern take on it in the late 1800s. There's also another Indian dish that's very similar. This next one that I'm going to pronounce incorrectly, parapu vada, although I think it's pronounced a little differently than that. But this is a split pea fritter. And this was created in the late 19th century by Jews in Kerala and Calcutta in the southern part of India. But for sure, the first falafel in Egypt, and still the most popular, is something called tamea, which is made of fava beans. I think we've got another photo here. Oh, this is what it means. It means little bite. And this is still a very popular street food in Egypt. And in fact, there is a place now in Manhattan called Zuba. I think the next photo here, it's an Egyptian chain from Cairo. That's what they look like. They're made from completely from fava beans. So they look a lot like falafel. Most people will say more or less they are falafel, even though there is a different name in Egypt called tamea. And this is the storefront of Zuba. It is on the in the sort of NoHo Soho area of New York. It actually replaced, I believe, an Israeli-owned falafel restaurant called Hummus Asli that had been there for a long time, if anyone knows that. And shortly before the pandemic, Zuba came into this location, and it's great. If you're in the neighborhood, you definitely should try it out. It tastes very similar to falafel, but slight nuance differences, and they serve it with some different toppings as well. So the word falafel, where does it come from? That's also up for debate. There's a few options. Some people say it's a Coptic word, falafel, which means of many beans, which seems pretty likely, although some people claim the Coptics never did eat anything like falafel. So there's that. Others say that it came from the Egyptian word for fava bean, which is this next word, ful, which is very possible. Or more likely, most people say it comes from an Arabic word, the next word here, which is filfil, which means pepper, which is one of the main ingredients usually in falafel. And the plural of filfil is falafel, or something like that. Again, my pronunciation, I apologize. So it means pepper, or sort of small round peppercorn. So that's sort of a general idea of where maybe falafel came from, but it has come to New York City and has become, excuse me, a ubiquitous part of certainly our street food. And in many ways, I think you can find falafel joints on almost as many corners in New York as bagel shops or pizzerias. It's close, but you don't have to go too far to get a falafel. This is out in Astoria, king of falafel and shawarma. He was not the first to sell it. Most people claim that it was in 1971 that an immigrant from Syria arrived here and opened up a very famous falafel restaurant or falafel joint. The original location in East Village, which is still there, 200 square feet, just prime real estate in New York. Mamoun Chater. And before him, really, if you found falafel, you only would have found it at people's homes, certainly not at a restaurant. Today, Mamoun's is still there. They've expanded. As Andrew mentioned, yes, they are in New Haven, Connecticut. They're also in the East Village, and they are in New Jersey, including in Hoboken, New Jersey. And so Mamoun's is most people claim was the first, but it was also around that time after 1965 when the immigration quotas were lifted post-World War II here in New York. Many immigrants from Arab countries, including Syria and Lebanon, came here to New York, and they would have continued to bring falafel. I think I mentioned today's Mamoun's is run by his grown children, his 4 grown children, who keep the business going strong. And I think it's still a pretty good place to get an example of falafel. And so from there, variations continue to abound. I want to show you a few options. Oh, before that, another wonderful falafel restaurant I should talk about. This business is called Taim, which is Israeli owned. Well, it's actually half Israeli, half French. It's a husband and wife, Chef Einat Adoni and her husband, Stefan Nafzgir, who is French and she is Israeli. They opened up this location in the West Village, not far from Mamoun's. Taim means tasty in Hebrew. And they also opened up a food truck that unfortunately is no longer in business, but in 2011, they were nominated for Rookie of the Year at the Vendy Awards. And their falafel is maybe a little different than you might find in other places. They have two signature falafels, which you can see in the next photo. They make a green one, which is stuffed with cilantro, parsley, and mint. So it's those strong herbs, but they also have a red one, which is made with harissa, which is a red pepper paste. And what's really exciting about Taim, and there's an example of the their I think that's their sort of, they used to have a brown one, and then I think the next photo is their red one. Unless I shouldn't have taken that out. It shows quite how bright and red their falafel can be, but they would have specials sometimes. So you could go into Taim and you'd find a black olive falafel, or you'd find a sun-dried tomato falafel. And I really think they showcase the options with falafel. While the original recipe maybe calls for, well, who knows even, right? Fava beans or chickpeas and herbs and spices. You can do just about anything. So yeah, I think is the next photo, Andrew, the red one. I think, oh no, I must have taken that out. Well, you can see the stark difference between the last color and this one from a place in Prospect Heights called Kalushkat, which is quite delicious. And now we're gonna kind of just run through some of these falafel places and options that I've put together. So this is Murray's, which unfortunately is no longer in business. For a long time, they were my favorite falafel, but theirs is a lot less green. So even just with the interior, you can see the variation. And then even less green is this next photo from Naomi's Pizza and Falafel, which is still out in business, excuse me. I believe in Rego Park. It's pretty far out in Queens. And this is a kosher pizza and falafel restaurant where you can barely have any trace of greens. It's definitely more onion, garlic, and chickpea heavy on this one. Bill asked if Taim recently opened in Park Slope. Not that I'm aware of, but the New York food scene changes so quickly. I try to stay on.
Yeah, it did, Brian.
Did it?
Yeah, Cindy ate there the other day, actually.
Oh, wow. Where in Park Slope is it? Do you remember?
It's near 7th Avenue and 9th Street.
Ah, cool. Well then, yes, Bill, thank you. Taim did recently open, and thank you, Andrew and Cindy. Next time I'm in Park Slope, I know what I will be having for lunch. Taim is amazing. I highly recommend it. All right, so yeah, and then you can see the different vessels. This is a place in Brooklyn. They had two locations. I think they still have the one opened in Carroll Gardens, but this is more like what you think of as like a classic pita wrap, like, you know, or a shawarma wrap instead of a pocket. You certainly find both. So this is Zaytoons, and the next photo I think shows, yeah, Olympic Pita, which has a location out in Sheepshead Bay or Coney Island. I'm sorry, it's far out in Brooklyn, but they used to have a location in Midtown, which is where this photo came from. And yeah, fry on fry, it stuffed some French fries in there as well. So even within the pita pocket, and there used to be lots of places that let you customize your pita pocket. If you want pickled vegetables, or you want tahini, or you want hummus, or you want carrots or cucumbers, there's lots of options. So let's see some other variations here. Yeah, going back to this place in Prospect Heights, Chickpea, sometimes you'll find just falafel sitting as part of a mez platter here with baba ganoush and hummus, and I believe that's labna yogurt and the falafel. It's great to dip into any of those things for sure. And falafel comes in lots of different sizes and shapes as well. Here's another example of a mixed platter. This is out in Bushwick, which I highly recommend. Queen of Falafel, if you're out there. It's right next to I believe it's called House of Yes, a very famous hot dance club that I've never been to, but if you are going out dancing, get some falafel next door. And oh yeah, Maryland, so it did close in Carroll Gardens, yeah.
And I'll just mention too, Brian, that in the follow-up and on our website, we're going to list all these places for you, so you can come back.
And a few others, because there are some new places that I did not include in this slideshow, but there is a new Israeli chain called Operation Falafel that opened in the Flatiron District. And there's a great place in Chelsea called Flefle. I believe I'm pronouncing that right, F-L-E-F-L-E. are both newer falafel places I recommend. So yeah, and here you see that falafel sometimes is covered in seeds as well. Seeds inside and then rolled on the outside as well. This is a place in the Lower East Side called Zara, which is excellent. And I believe the next photos are of different shapes. Yes, so King of Falafels, I'm not doing this shape today, but his is more of like an oblong shape. And if you ever go by the cart, even if you're not necessarily going to order a thing, if you're ordering a water even, they'll hand you a sample of falafel, which I think is part of why their business has grown so much. You just get to try it, and they hand you one of these orbs, which is amazing. I've even seen falafel that look like cakes. Not often, but this is a restaurant in the Flatiron district called Ili, which is Lebanese. And they used to have a stand at one of the food courts in Midtown that is no longer open, called City Kitchen. And they're kind of these cake-like shapes, but when you cut into it, it's got all those wonderful herbs and flavors as well. So I think that runs through some of my favorites. And yes, we will definitely send you some of these links. Oh yeah, how could I forget Eastwood? This is in the Lower East Side. This business is still around, and they do, in addition to falafel sandwiches and falafel platters, you can find falafel Scotch eggs, which is a play on a British dish here and is really quite decadent and delicious. So yeah, and falafel, as I mentioned, is really, you can go to almost any food cart in New York, and in addition to the chicken and lamb over rice, you can also get a vegetarian option, which has become falafel. From just about any cart. This is one of our favorites. This is in the financial district, Adele's. If you've joined us in the past for any of our programs, you've met Adele probably virtually. And also down in the financial district, I highly recommend Sam's Falafel, which is in Zuccotti Park, which is also an Egyptian-owned food cart. Now, as I mentioned, most food carts will sell it, even if they're not Egyptian or Israeli or Palestinian. One of our favorites is where Amanda is, which is at a business called Quick Meal, which is in Midtown on 45th Street and 6th Avenue. They're Bengali-owned. So there's Amanda live. She's at the cart. And earlier today, she had an opportunity to meet Nazir and do a little interview with him, who runs the food carts. So Amanda, do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And then we'll play the video of Nazir talking about his falafel.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So yeah, as Brian mentioned, I'm here at Quick Meal, one of our very favorite carts, and also one of the best places in the city to grab some falafel, which I'm going to do in just a couple of minutes. But before I do that, I'm just going to flip my camera around here and show you a little bit more what this cart looks like.
And I believe on the front of the cart, we'll also see a photo of the original owner, Mohammed, and Bobby Flay. So Mohammed, there we go. So Bobby Flay, who you may know has a TV show on Food Network, Throwdown, where he competes against different businesses. And he borrowed Mohammed's falafel recipe to compete against, I believe it was Taim, actually, in Greenwich Village. So this is Bobby Flay's falafel consultant here at Quick Meal. So Amanda, or Andrew, I guess, why don't we play the video of Nazir talking a little bit about their falafel? And then in the meantime, I'm going to move to the kitchen for the second part of our falafel demo. And Amanda's going to order a falafel sandwich at the cart. And we may go side by side, depending upon timing, to see the professionals make the falafel and me make some at home.
Nazir, thank you for joining us today and talking to us a little bit about your delicious falafel. So can you tell us what exactly is the secret to your award-winning falafel?
Oh, it has no secret actually. We put a lot of good ingredients. We put fava beans, then cilantro, then cumin, garlic, fresh garlic, all of this fresh garlic, then some chili, green chili, and also the chickpea and cumin, and some salt also. This is the ingredients.
Okay, now you're from Bangladesh, right?
Yes.
Now is falafel something that's traditionally eaten in Bangladesh?
No, we don't have falafel.
So I mean, obviously you don't only sell Bengali food, you even have things like hot dogs on your menu. But why falafel? Why did you choose falafel?
Oh, this is special because you know that the falafel, it is vegetarian. A lot of people eat vegetable, especially for the vegetarian people, and also the calorie. It has 0 calorie, almost 0 calorie. People especially conscious about the calorie, and also, you know, a lot of people avoid the meat and chicken. So people like it, and my boss, he made the best falafel. So it's, you know, that people like it.
Okay, well, thank you. I can't wait to try some, which I think I'm going to do in just a couple of minutes.
Okay.
But thanks for chatting with us for a few moments.
You are welcome.
Okay, thanks. I'll see you.
So I'm in my kitchen now, and the first thing, which I've been doing for a little bit, is you need to heat up the oil to a certain temperature. The oil has to be hot enough. And again, if you want, you could pan fry this, or you could bake this. I'm going to try to.
And Brian, before we dive in, we can get a little side-by-side view, because Amanda can see them cooking on the cart.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, and now they might have more obviously more fancy equipment. And I'm not sure if they have a special scooper like you might have noticed from that King of Falafel video. He's got a special brass scooper. I'm just using a spoon. So yeah, I'm sure they've got the oil heated, you know, all day long.
Yeah. And Amanda, have you put your order in yet?
I have, yep. I'm just waiting on my food now. So should be able to show you the final product in just a moment.
Great. So this should be just about perfect timing. So Brian, we're going to cut back to you.
So I'm forming the falafel balls here. And again, you can make them into patties. And patties actually might be easier to cook in here. But I like the shape of the balls here. Or if you want to try to make them into cakes or orbs, totally up to you here. Obviously, baking it would be healthier. I'm only going to make those for the time being. Baking would be healthier, but you still want to put some oil on the baking sheet, and probably on top of the falafel as well, to make sure they still crisp up. So I'm going to check the temperature here. We might have a bit of a ways to go still. But we're getting there. We want about between 350 and 375 on the oil. You want to oil with a high smoke point. I used canola oil here. But you could use vegetable oil or sunflower oil. I probably wouldn't use olive oil, also because that has a very strong flavor on its own. So you want a neutral, high smoke oil. Has anyone made falafel at home before?
Well, we did have a question, Brian, which is,
Okay.
Could you repeat again how long the mixture should rest? And should you rest it at room temperature or in the fridge?
I would rest it in the refrigerator. I've heard between 20 minutes and an hour. I think the longer you can rest it, probably the better. For today, obviously, we had limited time. I wanted to show you both sides of the cooking part. But yeah, between 20 minutes and an hour, for sure. And you want to soak them overnight. So that you can't skimp on that. You definitely want to soak the chickpeas the night before up to 24 hours. And that, you can do at room temperature, for sure. Were there any other questions so far? Has anyone made falafel? Do we have favorite places for falafel? Did anyone make any comments there? Okay.
Yeah, some people mentioned that they love taim as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
taim is
let's,
unique because I don't know other places where you can really get that red falafel or those different sort of flavored falafel, which I think is pretty exciting. Most places just have the standard green or brown falafel or yellow. Were you going to say something else, Andrew? Or ask
Well, I was just going to ask, are we up to temperature yet?
We are not. We are not. And yeah, is Amanda?
Yeah, let's take a look into to Amanda. Hey, Amanda, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. All right. So what do we have being served up here?
So this is my falafel sandwich coming up. Got some white sauce and hot sauce on there. One of the things I like that they do with the falafel sandwiches here is they chop the falafels up, which they don't always do. And so sometimes you can end up with a big kind of falafel ball, but they really chop it up nicely here. So it's bite size and everything. I'm gonna just go ahead and grab it. Thank you very much. Yeah, and in just a couple moments, I'll go ahead and unwrap it and give you a closer look at it.
All right.
Yeah.
Just gonna put it down right here.
And they top it. So of course the toppings vary as well. And they use a white sauce that they make that's similar to like a tzatziki sauce. Is that what you ordered, Amanda?
Yeah,
White and
so
the hot
that's
sauce?
yeah, I don't like to go too hot myself, but I know that the preference is often a little bit on the hotter side. I'm more of the white sauce kind of girl. But yeah, I want to try to, I've got a lot of things in my hand here, but I'll try to open this up to give you a closer look at what the sandwich actually looks like.
Their green chili sauce is one of my favorite hot sauces you can find on any cart anywhere.
I agree. And I actually like it on their fish. They make a salmon and a tilapia that sauce goes really nicely on. And the falafel. And I think that's a little different. You don't often find a green sauce from the falafel carts. It's usually a white and a red sauce.
And Brian, are you using a thermopen?
I am. Do you have one?
We do. I don't
Great.
know how I cooked without one.
Yeah, especially meat or, I mean, this oil. I think I'm gonna put the falafel in. It's at 352, which might be a little low still, but I know we're pressed for time. So we'll see.
And what's your optimal temperature, Brian?
Somewhere between 350 and 375.
Okay.
And I finally got my the armor off of my falafel sandwich here to give you a closer look. So yeah, it's filled with some lettuce, tomatoes, onions, some chopped falafel, peppers, and onions, all done on the flat top grill, fresh made to order. So it's going to be really delicious, and I'm about to tuck into it.
I'm going to put my falafel in. I got this fancy little spider here to get them in, and you don't want them too close together, but you do want us to have them submerged. And it should take not more than 4 to 5 minutes.
Howie mentioned another favorite, which is Moshe's Falafel on 6th Avenue.
Yes.
In the Diamond District.
Just a few blocks away from Quick Meal, in fact.
Yeah, he says that it was his favorite when he worked across the street.
Yeah, they're very good. I feel like theirs are also not quite as bright green as some others, if I remember correctly. But yeah, they were great. And they used to have a cart. I don't know if you remember this, Andrew, that would open and close like it would slide open. So it was bigger when it was in the location, but it was more compact and smaller, easier to pull away, to take the cart away back to the garage where they stored it.
Yeah, I think the city cracked down on that design feature. So they're pretty strict about the 5 foot by 10 foot maximum dimensions. And so, yeah, that cart unfortunately is not around anymore. Brian, I had a question here, which is, I know some people are very, very nervous about cooking with hot oil. So do you have any recommendations for how to reduce your anxiety about burning yourself?
Well, be careful.
Or burning your house down?
I mean, I like to use a Dutch oven, so it's pretty wide, so there's plenty of room. And if there is splattering, it doesn't really go too high. And also this thing is great because you really don't have to get too close to it. Yeah, other than that, I be careful. Yeah, I mean, I don't do a whole heck of a lot of frying. I've done it a few times, but just making sure that you're in a controlled environment and are ready to go with all of your stuff. Yeah, I probably should leave that to a professional chef to say for sure. I've only burned my house down twice, so other than that, I've been there. I mean, good. Oh yeah, and of course, is they're closed for Passover this week, which is, this is definitely an Israeli food in addition to other places. So it is Passover. It's not, and it is kosher for Passover because there's no flour or leavened bread in it. So
and of course, many of the other vendors making it will have to wait until after sundown to eat it because it's also Ramadan.
Oh, that's right. Of course. So they'll make it, but they won't eat it until after sundown, like you said. So how was your falafel sandwich, Amanda?
Yeah, it's so good. I'm sorry, it's a little bit cold and windy here. I was just waiting to eat along with you. Do I have permission to go and eat my sandwich?
Oh, please. Yeah, and I'm not doing a whole sandwich. I'm just frying the falafel. So please, yeah, I don't want it to get cold.
All right, give me 1 second and I'll give you an on-screen sampling here.
And while Amanda tucks in, Brian, how do you know when they're done?
Well, I'm putting a timer on for 4 minutes and I'm hoping for the best, but I'll certainly see them once they're cooked, that they're crisp on the outside, but still soft in the middle is the hope.
This is so good.
Is there like a toothpick test or anything you can do with falafel, or you just got to eyeball it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it, like pulling it out like a baked cake to see if it's dry in the middle. I have not come across a technique there. I think I'm going to take these out. We're almost at 4 minutes and they look the color. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm still learning. I've practiced a little bit. To me, these look on the outside just right. I mean, that's the right color you want. Hopefully I didn't overcook them and the oil wasn't too hot, which I don't think it was. They stayed together, which is
We're going to get a close, if we could, the last one, you could just hold it, Brian, we'll get a close-up look at it.
Yeah, that looks perfect, Brian.
We'll see. I don't want to, okay. Yeah, now what you could do at the end also, you let me move this over, is you could add a little more salt. And if you want to add salt at the end, you definitely want to do it while they're hot. Because the salt will stick to them better when they're hot, of course. Otherwise, they'll just fall over. So I want to cut into them, but I probably should let them rest a minute or two. Except we're almost at time, so let's do a little fork test. Wow, that looks right to me. Can you? Yeah. What do you guys think?
Pretty good, Brian.
Looks
Yeah.
pretty good. All right, I'm gonna take a bite. I know it's hot.
All right.
Amanda?
Mine's delicious.
So are mine. So whatever I did today, guys, if you do it exactly the same way, you're gonna end up with fantastic falafel. You can top it with tahini. You could top it with hummus. You could really anything you want. You can eat it just like this. But does Brian's son like falafel? Cindy asked. He has never tried falafel. And it's funny because the last time I made it, I didn't put the cayenne in with the hopes that he would try it. Today I put the cayenne and it has a little kick to it, not too strong. But I think for him, if I gave this to him, he would never eat falafel again. So I got to be careful about when I give him new food. You know, Amanda. I will say the salt at the end is the right way to go. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope this was enjoyable. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you got some ideas. As Andrew said, we'll send you some links on places to try falafel. I'm a little close to the oil. It's still boiling a little bit, so be careful. But yeah, if there's any last questions or anything, Amanda, we're having a feast. I'm sorry to everyone else watching.
I'm the only one who doesn't have falafel here, but thank you guys so much.
Pita, don't you, down the block?
Yeah, I mean, there's a place I could get it, but I didn't. I should have thought ahead and got some falafel for my lunch. I just had leftovers instead. But thank you everybody so much for joining us, and thank you to Amanda and Brian for that amazing presentation. So like Brian said, we will follow up with those recommendations, and we'll also share the recipe and where you can get this wonderful book, New York a la carte, that Brian got this recipe from. But yeah, and let us know if you have any additional recommendations, places that we missed. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and join us next Monday for our next virtual program, and come and join us on a tour. You can come and try Quick Meal yourself and other great falafel places every Friday on our food cart tours in Midtown or the Financial District, and now our new evening food cart tour. So thank you all so much. And yeah, thanks guys.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, everyone. Cheers.
All right.